Okay, thanks. I'm Alex Morrison. I'm part of this panel. I run a company in Brighton called Cogapp, and we are digital designers, I guess. We work with online and interactive stuff. And this talk, I suppose, is just about scratching some itches in relation to a career. I've been doing this for a very long time, for over 20 years. And in the course of that, this whole issue of user-centered design, what makes great stuff, what makes great software, has been something that's perennially kind of come and bitten me in one way or another. And this talk is kind of a bit eccentric, deliberately so, and I'm starting with John Keats. And John Keats said something that has made me think a lot, and he said that what was great about Shakespeare was that he had negative capability. That is when a man is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, and doubts without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. So in other words, that Shakespeare had an incredible capacity to be open-minded, to leave things unresolved. And I think that is a huge paradox for anybody working in this area, is that you have to be open-minded. You have to be open to your users. You have to be open to the possibilities of your work, and yet you have to deliver something. Shakespeare has to finish his play, but he has to be open to the possibilities around his characters. I began my work in artificial intelligence, which is the strange origin of my strange name for the company, and I began working with people who were dealing with diesel engines. And what we learned in working with diesel engines, the experts in diesel engines, was that they had lots of different ways of thinking about diesel engines, and they flipped between them. So the thing that distinguished people who are really good at diesel engines was their capacity to think about them in lots of different ways, in ways that were not at all obvious to people who didn't know anything about diesel engines, and to switch from one way to another way according to the context of what they were doing. And it turned out that in fact, one of the main ways in which they thought about diesel engines was completely non-physical. They thought about diesel engines as sets of processes. So they thought about it as a fuel process, as an aeration process, as a drive process, and that they were really transcending the physical bits almost completely. And I think that capacity to think about things in lots of different ways and to work with that is critical. This is a picture of an anthropologist. He's called Alfred Gell, and he wrote a book called Art and Agency. And I can't recommend this book highly enough. It's an anthropological account of art, and I think that in our world, which is a bit like photography, it begins as a craft, it begins as something that people think about technically, but I think it then becomes recognized as an art. I think what we're doing in creating any kind of media object is at some level aspiring to be art, or we should be. And what Gell says, amongst many, many other things which are very, very critical, is he says part of my experience of Vermeer's Lace Maker painting is the contemplation of the possibility that I, not Vermeer, could have produced this painting. At the same time, I'm acutely aware of the counterfactuality of this. Gazing at the picture, my jaw drops in admiration and defeat. I'm stuck in a space where I can sort of imagine having done it, and I can't imagine having done it. I can kind of begin to imagine how you could create a painting like this. I know the technology of putting paint onto canvas, but at the same time, it's beyond my imagination how it can be done. And I think all design work has that duality potentially in it, that you can create something which is both, yeah, I sort of understand how that can be done, I understand how to make pixels work on a screen, but actually what's being done here is beyond what I can do. And that, which Gell calls captivation, I think, again, is inherent in everything that we do if we do it well. The thing which got me out of doing artificial intelligence rather badly into doing new media, as it was then, was a product called HyperCard, of which I'm sure Cory Doctorow would have approved, because Bill Atkinson, who wrote it, made Apple give it away, and give it away with every Mac. And it doesn't look much from this screen, and it might not feel like much now, but it was, I think, the most revolutionary thing I had ever come across, and perhaps in some ways still is, because it was the first thing that allowed you to combine text and images and animation and programming all in one neat little package. And people did things with this. And they did things like Cosmo. I don't know if people remember this. The Cyan brothers did this. They went on to create Mist, but before Mist was Cosmo. And Cosmo was something which exactly exemplifies Gell's remarks about design, that it was something which was so amazing, so huge and so beautifully done, that when people looked at it, they went, wow, I have to be part of this, I have to get into this. And we were awestruck by Cosmo. However, I have to say that I think the Cosmo sort of misses the point, and I think this came across very strongly to me yesterday in the session about those different ideas for the M-scapes. And I think there's a distinctive software sensibility, which I seem to have, which isn't necessarily shared, but perhaps is more common, I think, which is about functionality being very important. And what I'm showing you here is something, Cosmo probably took person years of work to create. HyperWrap, which was this little tool for making sound loops, probably took a couple of days. But the truth is that HyperWrap is a great deal more functional in most ways than Cosmo, and actually gave me, at least, and most of the people I know, a great deal more pleasure than Cosmo did, albeit it was less awe-inspiring. And I think that in developing this new media stuff, that we have to search for a kind of software mentality which is different from the mentalities of the older media, and it's something to do with the functionality, the stuff, the interaction, the way in which it grips you to click on it. This is a picture of Guy Kawasaki. Guy Kawasaki was an Apple evangelist. He's now a VC and a mentor to new businesses and stuff. And Guy Kawasaki said something which has stuck with me ever since when I think about doing software design or design of any kind of media object. He said that great software is dice. It's deep, indulgent, complete, and elegant. And I think that those things are, if you think about it, present in every great piece of software. Deep in the sense that you can keep going into it. Think of Photoshop. You know, you can do the obvious thing. You can look at a picture, you can cut something out. But there are tools and tools and tools below that first level of the interface. You can keep going for as far as you want. It's indulgent in the sense that there are lots of different ways of doing the same thing. So whatever your preference is, you can indulge that preference. And the software doesn't let you go wrong. It keeps finding ways for you to succeed and not to fail. It's complete in the sense that it does everything you want to do with a digital picture. And it's elegant in that sense that Gell would understand, that captivating, that it is something which you just think, wow, the experience of this is somehow a bit magical and something which I want. I have had the great privilege to be involved in some good projects, and this is one of them. This was a project at the National Gallery in London, and it was a collaboration between my company and a team at the National Gallery and the staff of the National Gallery and their users in a broader sense. And I think, again, that this is something in thinking about design, that it's always a dialogue between the production team, if you like, and their various craft sensibilities and the sensibilities of the users, and all of these things in some sort of mishmash, which, going back to the Keats thing, you have to keep those things open as long as possible, and yet you still have to deliver something. And this is what we delivered, which was a touchscreen system. It opened in 1991, and for many people who used it, it was the first computer system they'd used. The machines that we delivered on in total cost about £6,000, and they had a 1.8 gigabyte hard drive, which was delivered a few weeks before we opened. And it was, again, I think that cost about £2,000, something which Brendan would now install on a cassette tape and send out for a couple of quid.